Welcome to this week's Inside the Lords. Sometimes the Lords is a bit slow, and so it was only this week that we were discussing the autumn statement in winter. And you can tell it's winter because we're standing by Christmassy things by the Westminster Abbey. I have to say that the autumn statement discussion was a bit different for me because I was welcoming Baroness Lim of, Baroness Lee of Lim, Ruth Lee as I know her really. And the reason why it was quite nice was my speech was rather well received because I made the point that even though she was on a different political side to me on most issues, that she'd been very generous to me when I first met her over 20 years ago. She's very much a kind of free market conservative. He agreed on Brexit, but there's loads of things we don't agree on at all. But as I say, I felt that to give her a welcome speech when she asked me was appropriate. And this seemed to have melted the hearts in a Christmas-like way of a number of my dearest opponents on the Labour benches and on the cross benches who gave me lots of hears because I was nice to her. And because I made the point that it was important that, sectarian party politics sometimes needs to be put to one side and you have to go for principles. I'm sure many baronesses across the House will welcome this fearless, clever woman and independent thinker as a great asset to the Chamber. The noble Baroness was very insightful in her comments on the Office for Budgetary Responsibility, and I'd like to follow on from her remarks about the autumn statement by disagreeing with her. She'll understand that. I then stuck the boot into the Conservatives' autumn statement. In the aftermath of the Truss Kwarteng mini-budget, many critics suggested that if only Downing Street had allowed the OBR to publish its forecast, financial turmoil could have been avoided. But surely this credits the OBR with some all-knowing, ever-present, godlike qualities, when in reality it's an unelected watchdog only established in 2010. Something to note on the Conservatives, they're really in collapse. I know that this is not an insight from the Inside the Lords, because you can tell, but they genuinely look like the heart's been kicked out of them. And it's really interesting because there was very few people from the Conservative benches who defended the autumn statement. People of all sorts were just prepared to say, this is terrible, what is it? It's limp, it's austerity, it's got no vision. And of course, Labour benches saying the same. My big theme was that everybody was missing the point, talking about redistributive, effectively, tax issues, poor people, all these kind of issues, and missing the big, deep problem of the economy, which is productivity. So you can have a look at that speech and see what I had to say. But the Conservative Party, I think, is a victim of thinking that if you just say the word stability, if you actually say we're going to calm things down, but if you adopt a technocratic mindset, you cannot inspire people. And even though I don't think there's much enthusiasm for the Labour Party, we kind of know what they're going to say, where they stand. And so I actually think the opinion polls are right to reflect that. But I do know that a lot of people who have been following me Inside the Lords and who might be watching and looking at the Substack, people who consider themselves to be politically homeless. And there's an atmosphere of despair. What can we do? Some people are looking to some of the smaller parties. Reform's just had a bit of a boost in the polls. But actually, I think we've just got to stop looking at party politics as what politics is. And we have got to, my old theme, think about politics much more about creating movements that are committed to free speech. Actually have the debates we want to have, don't let them dictate the terms. So in that spirit, there's a number of things I want to talk about. Just in terms of the Lords specifically, next week we're going to have the Higher Education Academic Freedom Bill, which is at a report stage. That's when you actually get to vote. And this is quite an important moment because this is a flagship bill for the government. They've said it means that they're committed to free speech and academic freedom. But what's actually happened is that there's been quite a lot of opposition to the bill, largely from Labour and crossbench MPs, who've said that actually they all run colleges, by the way. They're all higher up in higher education, and they kind of don't think the bill's necessary, but they want to make it as toothless as possible. And it's just been announced today that the government have given in on one of the major parts of the bill, which was to give people the ability to use the civil courts if they were discriminated against on the basis of academic freedom. I mean, unbelievable. This was hardly a popular rebellion, but they gave in. And then people say, well, there was a popular rebellion around the online safety bill, and they've got rid of the lawful but harmful clause. But actually, if you look at what they've done, the new online safety bill, which is not going to come to the laws now till the new year, is actually now really cementing corporate power. It's making corporate power much more important in the bill. This is disastrous, right? They're just handing over responsibility. So some improvement, overall still a real threat to free speech. So obviously that will be my New Year's resolution, to try and raise that. The other issues that have come up this week that will be reflected in my Lord's speech next week are to do with race. We've had this interminable discussion over the last day or two about the 83-year-old lady in waiting and whether she was racist or not when she asked somebody where they were from. It does seem to me that this lady was, to say, out of step and rude and badly behaved, and I'd be irritated. It's one thing saying where you're from once, going on and on and on. But we know that it's become a political football now, right? And the people that are most on her side are activists, most on the charity side are activists, and they're using this to say this proves that the UK is institutionally racist, that the royal family are institutionally racist, everybody's racist. Racism loses all sense of meaning. I mean, somebody being rude and misspeaking, in my opinion, is not the same as, the police going in and kicking the heads in of black youth, right? Or people having been burnt out their houses, or gross, explicit, racist abuse. It's a microaggression at best, whatever that means. And yet the royal family have panicked, defensive, sacked somebody who's worked there since 1960. Are you watching The Crown? She's in The Crown. This series, right? She's there, married to Marmaduke Hussey, and who ran the BBC. And they just have got rid of her. Like she's inconvenient, humiliated her, accepted she's a bigot. I mean, that's a terrible way to treat people. I mean, it's quite elitist way to treat your staff, as it were. So that's been, rumbling on, and it's obviously a free speech issue, because people start to get anxious then about what they can say, what they can't say, and that's not going to help anybody when it comes to racial relationships in the country. But the other thing that's happened, and I think this is more worrying for me, is that it's been announced through the Office for National Statistics that in some cities there are more non-white people living than white people. I don't find that worrying, because that's not the worrying bit. The worrying bit is that people who profess to be anti-identity politics, people I generally would agree on a lot of things, have basically decided that rather than going along with the absolutely important principle of being colourblind, of saying that skin colour is not an issue, they themselves have said, oh my God, there's more, in some cities, there's more non-white people than white, there's more black people than white people. Oh my God, there's got something to do with immigration. No, it hasn't. Why has it? And why is skin colour so important? We're the ones who are meant to be holding the line on this. We're the ones who say that people who talk about white privilege, white everything, talk about that, are actually not looking into people's characters but judging people by skin colour. We can't react by panicking about skin colour when it comes out like this. It's been a very unsavoury few days of people really saying some things which I think are unpleasant, and saying that Enoch Powell is a hero. No, wrong. Let me tell you, Enoch Powell's speech, which you should read, by the way, it's well worth reading, was not a prophecy of what was to come. It's the actual opposite, because actually there was not rivers of blood, because we are, as citizens, capable of getting on with each other despite the fact we've got different skin pigmentations, or that some of our families are from previous generations of immigrants but are British born citizens, and even if we're not British born citizens, that we're British citizens. This is not the same as being worried about people arriving in small boats illegally coming across borders. That's a different question. So as I mentioned last week, one of the things I'll be doing next week is entering into the debate on immigration. I'm going to raise some of these difficult and tricky issues, and you can wish me luck on that, because I'm dreading that I'll make a mess of it and misspeak myself. All of this indicates that nothing is ever straightforward, right? That there's always more to a story. Don't believe just the headlines on the online safety bill is better. Don't believe the government when they say we've got this academic freedom bill, that means we're on the side of free speech. It's always more complicated. There's always more going on. And what the Academy of Ideas does, which is obviously what I'm really interested in, is actually try and dig deeper. We've actually only just finished all of our Battle of Ideas events for this year, which is great, because we've been travelling internationally and nationally around the country, having a range of different discussions. And atrociously, a discussion on education, not indoctrination. There was an attempt at cancelling that in Glasgow, but the organisers, with the support of us at the Academy of Ideas, went ahead. Great discussion, important, difficult discussions were had out. So, Battle of Ideas is over. Christmas is coming, but oh no, I'm not going to let you rest, right? Because what we are doing, and what I'm really excited about, is to tell you about something which the Academy of Ideas is very much supportive of, which is the school's Debating Matters competition is having a Christmas lecture on December the 12th, and the details will be posted up. It's actually in a beautiful old church, actually, and it's on December the 12th. You're all welcome to come along. And we've got Ali Miraj speaking, who's an excellent speaker. He's the founder of the Contrarian Prize. He's going to be giving a lecture. We're going to be hearing testimonials from former pupil debaters, from judges, from teachers, and we're going to be having, you know, mulled wine and mince pies and having a Christmas event and talking the importance of free speech, going against the grain, not fitting in with conformity, not being silenced, not being cancelled, not allowing ourselves to be cancelled. So I really hope that you all come along to that. And the Academy of Ideas relationship with this event is that at that event we're launching our Christmas letters on liberty, one of which is by Ali Miraj, which is on the contrarianism as a virtue. We've then got Mo Lovett, who's the national coordinator of Debating Matters, who's actually written a wonderful account of why debating matters with the young, why debating matters for the young particularly, and she's written a great letter on liberty. And then we've got Dr. Ken McLaughlin, who's written a very important pamphlet on mental health. Actually, mental health, or people being traumatised, one of the reasons why so many debates are closed down these days. But Ken actually helps us understand properly how we should view mental health problems, and not the expanded version of that category that's used in such a promiscuous way, in a very unhelpful way, particularly for those who are mentally ill. So December the 12th is a day that you should come along. Let your friends know, tell everyone about it, let's all get together. We need to start thinking about what kind of movement we're building, not complaining that we're politically homeless because the political parties won't do their job well, but start doing our job well as citizens and working out what it is we want to happen in 2023 in the new year. And next week I'll tell you whether I survive fighting the government on their sellout on academic freedom, and whether I survive coping with dealing with the difficulties of discussing race and racism in contemporary Britain.